From the 915 to H-Town, from the Panhandle Plains to the Valley, and everywhere in between. This is the 50/50 Podcast, powered by the 50/50 Podcast Network. Join me, Hector Cano, as we cover the Texas high school club and college soccer landscape, along with an inside look at the college soccer recruiting scene. The 50/50 Podcast is a platform about the people and for the people who are dedicated to the beautiful game. Here we go. It's another edition of Inside Texas High School Soccer, episode 10. Thank you for joining us. We are working through some minor technical difficulties. We apologize as we are launching. This is our very first episode on our new broadcast platform, EV Mux. Really excited, really looking forward to it. Excited to have you guys here. We got an absolutely loaded show. I don't even know where to begin. We got so much going, so many different directions. Rafa, how are you, buddy?
Good. Just returning back from the SAFC game. Tough loss.
Yeah. What 2-1, right?
2-1.
2-1. Yeah, it's not like anybody was watching. It was only nationally televised, right? Yeah, I saw it was some chaos, man. It was what two penalties in the span of like 2 minutes, I think, back and forth, or something like less than 3 minutes, and then just chaos, absolute chaos. Thoughts on that game?
Just like I said, I think the lineup initially must. I think they should have gone back to the more speed up top, but and then also the factor of not having Mitchell Taylor not playing. I think that he loses experience in the back.
Right.
So
What was it? What is it again? Ankle with him? Is that what it is?
No, I think it's a calf strain.
Calf strain. Gotcha. Yeah, the Iron Man, right? He's first game he's been out in who knows how long. Crazy stuff. Well, hey, how besides that, don't want to, we already got a crazy show, but before we begin with anything else, excuse me, we kind of wanted to start this show a little bit differently. This show, we kind of wanted to enter on a bit of a sad note, somber note, in honoring one of our own, a fellow Texas high school soccer coach who I never personally had the privilege of meeting directly, heard lots about him, and who recently succumbed to his illness. And we were talking about Coach Press Holcomb, who was most recently the head coach at Kingwood, and beloved by many. I know a Tasco Hall of Honor inductee, I think 4 or 5 maybe years ago or so, and excuse me, and just really, just got the news came in overnight yesterday, and I know it got many by surprise, and it was very much something that we were on a somber, had us all on a somber note. So what we wanted to go ahead and do, if you know him, obviously feel free to chime in here, send in your messages, send in your love messages for his family. We're thinking of him. We're thinking of his family. They've been in our thoughts and prayers for a while now, but just want to take a moment of silence here for Coach Press Holcomb. Thank you. So, what's up, my man? What else is going on besides being on the somber SAFC note? What have you been up to?
Just just trying to enjoy some playoff games, and I thought I was get to see one of the best teams in the state, and
So you thought.
and then Harry sent me the message, and then did some investigating,
Mm-hmm.
and then boom.
Yeah,
and we'll get to that.
The internet. Yeah, we'll get to that much more later. In case you have no idea what Rafa's talking about, I'm going to let him. I think everybody's going to be able to, should have an idea in terms of what we're talking about at this point. But if not, we're definitely going to dive into that more. Definitely a point of conversation for sure. But before we do, Going to tell you guys a little bit about our show today. We're loaded with guests. We got 3 guests today. First time that we've ever had 3 different or not a panel, but 3 different guests all at the same time on the show. Not at the same time, but on the show in one show. And we're going to start off. We're doing something a little bit differently. We're going to bring on just for a few minutes a personal friend of mine, but also a gentleman coach who I have a ton of respect for. He is Dave Simeone he is a director of coaching education services for United Soccer Coaches. He's going to talk about a great coaching opportunity that's taking place here in Texas this summer. Then we're also going to have a couple of our state championship coaches that are coaching in the state finals this coming week. Both one for Cedar Park as well as one for Klein Kane. And we're excited we'll introduce them a little bit later. We're going to get to talk to them. Very excited. But before we do, we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started. We're going to go ahead and bring in. All right, we're going to bring in Coach Simeone, Dave Simeone, the Director of Coaching Education for United Soccer Coaches. Dave, how are you, buddy?
Hector, how are you? It's great to be here, and Rafa, it's good to see you.
Good to have you back. Good to have you back. It's been a minute. How long? What's it been? It's 2 years maybe since we had you on, I think.
Yeah, I think it's right around a couple of years.
Yeah. So, Coach, before we dive in and you tell us why you're here and the exciting stuff you got going on in our great state this summer, how are things?
It's busy. There's always 3 things going on at one time between education, our online learning platform, as well as our blended education deliveries. And then, we're always in this constant state of just preparation and of the convention, which will be this year, January 14th through 17th in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And it's going to be great because it coincides with the 250th birthday for the country. And so the Men's World Cup coming up, so we're going to try and load it up and have a great time in Philadelphia and with coaches in an environment where they can learn something.
Yeah, great. It's an exciting time, right? Exciting time in our country. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of change, a lot of good changes, both good and can be kind of resistant. There can be a lot of resistance to it as well. But one of the main reason why we have you on here, I know we're not going to keep a lot of your time, Coach, but you are here to tell us about correct me if I'm wrong, a advanced national diploma course, a blended course that's going to be taking place here in Texas this summer, as offered by your organization, United Soccer Coaches. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. We're doing 2 courses that are going to culminate in person at West Texas A&M July 25th through 27th. The in-person weekend is preceded by 4 Zoom calls. And so what happens is instead of 4.5 days away from your family, away from your friends, and on your summer vacation, we compact all of that methodology and session planning and everything else so that we do 4 Zoom calls, and then we get into a long weekend, which will be the Friday afternoon through Sunday afternoon for all the in-person and mainly on the field activity. The advanced national goalkeeping is the highest piece of education that we have for education related to goalkeeping. And then the advanced national diploma focuses and emphasizes phase play and functional training through the thirds of the field and roles and responsibilities. So we're very excited about that. Actually be hosted Butch Lawford, the men's coach at West Texas A&M and part of our instructional staff. So we're very excited about being back in Canyon, Texas.
Because I know it comes again, those dates, Coach, because I know they come in waves, right? So it's an initial phase. Is the in-person portion first? Is that correct?
No, the Zoom calls for the Advanced National Diploma start on June 15th.
Oh, okay. So I got it flipped. Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
there are two Zoom calls in June, two Zoom calls in July, and then the in-person is July 25th through 27th.
So it'll end with the in-person part in which, so, and again, that is slated for to take place at West Texas A&M University in Canyon, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, awesome. So a total of 5 different meetings. So four Zoom calls, and then of course you're in person. Now, for some of our coaches, right, that are looking to extend themselves, maybe they've done their grassroots, maybe they've
Mm-hmm.
been looking into a national diploma, or maybe they've
Yep.
completed a national diploma. Maybe it's been a while. Why should they be considering this next course in the Advanced National?
Well, our focus is about meeting coaches where they're at and improving them from where they're at in these diploma courses. So if you're interested in being better, you're interested in being involved in an educational experience that's going to enrich what you can take back to your players, to your teams, to your programs, I think this is where you want to be. I liken us over our 80 years of existence, a little bit of like driver's education. If you want to be a better driver, this is the place that you want to be in order to learn how to be a better coach. And we all know that better coaching means better players.
Absolutely, absolutely. Rafa, you got anything for Coach regarding this course?
Yeah. Well, I know the courses are great because like I said, I have my national goalkeeping license, so I'm
Great.
hoping to see. Hopefully, maybe I get an opportunity to get my advanced national for goalkeeping. Because I'm
Well,
like
I
a
hope we
sponge.
see you there.
So hopefully, I get an opportunity to go do that. And what as far as the future, as far as coaching education, what do you see here from beyond? Like I said, as far as with now that especially with the high school side, how do you guys work with that
Hmm.
to kind of convince
Hmm.
high school coaches to do these national courses?
Well, we have a high school diploma. In fact, I was just talking with the high school coaches in Colorado. We're talking about offering a blended high school diploma. And really, the focus for the high school coach, that curriculum and that schedule is a little flexible. So you want to talk about program management. If you want to talk about how do I, as a high school coach, develop a game model? If you want to talk about building community relations, fundraising, connecting with your administrators, and if you'd rather us produce some of the curriculum that's going to be on the field in terms of training players, the high school diploma is an excellent course. We've done it for about 32 years now, and we value the segment of coaches that are secondary educators and coaching in high school. It's such a big part of our environment here in the United States.
Gotcha. And Coach, one of the main questions I'm sure that you still feel to this day, because I get it asked all the time, especially amongst our younger coaches that are looking to dive in, develop, get their coaching education. They always ask the question, right, about, well, should I, which it's kind of all, and because time is often limited, but then of course expense and what have you. This is why this is a great opportunity, this advanced national over the summer, and it's blended. But you always get the question, right? Hey, which way should I go? Should I go the United Soccer Coaches? Should I go USSF? And there's obviously benefits to both, and you want to ultimately experience both. My personal take on it has always been, in terms of the United Soccer Coaches, it's a great learning, it's a true learning and developmental environment, right? You're there to learn, you're there to grow, and you're there to have an interpersonal relationship with whoever, with all your instructors, right? And but you really ultimately learn from the other coaches in that training environment. So, what would you say to the coach, right, who's kind of debating, do I go one route or the other, and why United Soccer Coaches?
You know, so many of us, our experiences are not in one track. I'm included in that. I have both my federation licenses, I've taught those courses. I value them. I value my experience with the United States Soccer Federation. And I also have my diplomas from United Soccer Coaches, formerly the NSCAA. So I see them as compatible. It's not really a competition. You are correct. There is some difference in cost. So for the Advanced National, for instance, the blended course not only takes you less time in person, but it's between $800 and $900, and it's it's you can shop that price comparison if you want to. I just think, what do you want out of your educational experience? And there's nothing wrong with doing some of both.
Correct, correct. Well said. And coach, as we start to wrap up here, I know we wanted to bring you on just for a few minutes of your time. There, I know we got you up late as well, up there, up in Kansas City. But really
Yeah.
appreciate your time, coach. You've always been great. You've always been very gracious with me, and very gracious with the podcast as well. So we appreciate your time. But as we wrap up with you, coach, just one last thought. Typically what we do here normally is we kind of have a stoppage time, right? Kind of share thoughts, shout outs, thank yous, anything like that. In your case, because you're here for a specific reason regarding a course, I guess for the coaches that are out there, right? Whether it's club coaches across the state of Texas, but really specifically our Texas high school soccer coaches, what are your thoughts? What have you noticed? What have you maybe pieced together, especially over maybe the last few years post pandemic? What are your thoughts on your takeaways on Texas high school soccer?
When I moved to Texas to coach at Midwestern State University in 1983 and do my graduate work, high school soccer was so different. I look at the quality of coaches that have grown into secondary education and the impact that they have had on players and on their programs as high school coaches. I think it's incredible. I think the high school game, I feel, in Texas is among the strongest in the country. Its coaching ranks are filled with former college, former pro players who are working at their craft, who are passing on knowledge, information, and experience in their programs to their players. It is pretty impressive. So, to all of those guys and gals who are educators working in high school soccer and doing a bang up job, we want to thank you, because in our environment, high school soccer is an incredibly important piece. It may not be in Europe, it may not be in South America the same, but the way education is woven with sport into the social and cultural fabric of our country, it's a critical piece of it, and they do a great job. And in Texas, it's done nothing but get better, guys.
Great words. Great words. Thank you again, Coach. Rafa, you got any final thoughts for Coach Simeon before we let him go?
No, like I said, I enjoy, like I said, we United Soccer Coaches, their courses, and like I said, I took my national goalkeeping coach with the late Tony DeChico, so I learned a lot from him, and I think also from Tim Howard's former goalkeeping coach too. He was such a character too, so I learned a lot. It's helped me develop a lot of great goalkeepers from my club, and so. And you're always learning from so from the courses. If you haven't taken a course, I truly recommend you're going to learn a lot from the United Soccer Coaches.
Yeah.
Great
And
stuff.
before we let you go, Dave, one more plugs, dates, times. Where can they go to register for this course and get more information? Once again.
Sure. First of all, it's out on social media, but if they want to contact me directly, dsimeone at unitedsoccercoaches.org, or they can go to United Soccer Coaches website, go under education. The courses are all listed in a master schedule, and they can register right there.
Well said. He is, again, Coach Dave Simeon, the Director of Coaching Education Services at United Soccer Coaches. Coach, really appreciate you. Thank you for your time, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you, fellas. Good evening.
Take care, Coach. Have a good night. All right. Big thanks to Coach Simeon for joining us for a few minutes. United Soccer Coaches letting us borrow him for a few minutes. So cannot got to get better in terms of as a coach, right? It's not about how many licenses, how many badges, how many diplomas you have. The experience is what I recommend. Is without a doubt what I recommend. But thoughts on what he had to share, Rafa? Anything else?
No, like I said, I recommend going to those courses because it's only going to make you better as a coach, but also you share that knowledge with your players. Make better practices, better technique. You learn all that, and it's like I said, even for me, it's helped me on along the way. Plus, you get to meet different, coaches. Like I said, I had the pleasure to meet Tony DeChico at my national license for goalkeeping. I learned a lot from him. He showed me like he was very hands on to showing how proper technique. And like I said, so it's something I can share us for for a
Absolutely.
lifetime. Like I said, learning from one of the best. He's won a World Cup, so it's what more can you what more can you ask?
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that one of the best things, right? I didn't mention it when we had him on here, but one of the best things that I know you and I getting to experience that the direct coaching application and direct being instructed by the late great Tony DeChico was that's like one of the highlights for me as well, right? So being able to attend their one of their courses and having just direct access to him and just as humble as could be. I'm here. I am like I'm sharing the same space with a World Cup champion coach, and just as humble as could be, just very giving. And that's what you'll often see with the environment in United Soccer Coaches, right? Formerly NSCAA, is it's just very inclusive. Very, it's we're there to learn, right? We're not there. You're not there to be shunned or to see, how what exactly you have because you will develop in that environment, but you'd learn so much from your fellow peers, right? Your colleagues, the coaches in the course, and just in talking with them, right? So, big thanks again to Coach Simeone for Coach Simeone, I should say, for joining us. But that is going to do it for our first guest, and we're going to go ahead. We're going to bring on our next guest here. He is Coach Winston Poole, the head women's soccer coach of the Cedar Park Timberwolves. Coach, how are you?
Doing great. Thank y'all for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. How are before we dive into all the madness, all the chaos, all the craziness that's going on in the Timberwolf Nation? How are things in general?
I mean, watching film daily, trying to do scouting reports. Got to go see the FC game last night, so that was kind of a stress reliever. But other than that, trying to get ready for next Friday.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
y'all aren't big Austin FC fans down there, but
No, hey, we're not big fans. I'm not a big fan of the current owner. I'll just leave it at that.
We are 1-0, so
that is
we
true.
are
That
one and
is
zero.
true.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, you guys, it's a decent trade off. You guys get the MLS squad, and we get the better breakfast tacos. So even trade, okay, even trade. But
I'll take it.
yeah, Coach, again, thank you for being here. Got to congratulate you for the run that your squad has made. Again, your squad, who I got to see very up close and personal as well a few weeks ago, and cannot tell you enough how impressed I was by your squad, and not shocked one bit to see you here on the verge of a state title, playing for a state title this coming week. How is before we kind of start diving into more of the details? Just what's the buzz like right now? Just the community, the program, your girls, everything. What is it like right now?
Cedar Park's hype right now. We're trying to get everybody out of school on Friday and bus them down to Georgetown. That's going to be a chore, but I mean, we're trying to get all the elementaries, middle schools, all the feeder schools involved, and everybody's excited. The girls are excited, the admin's excited, faculty, all the parents. So it's awesome right now.
Awesome. So, give us the details on the match. I know, obviously, we're going to look them up later, and we're going to discuss it later. But since we have you on here, match details, what time? Obviously, we know where, but day, time, and then the logistics of how do you prepare for that?
We play at 11 a.m. on Friday in Georgetown. So we got the first game, which I always like playing the first game because you get the warm up and the field's open and you're not waiting around for other teams and stuff. We actually got to play Wakeland in the Governor's Cup earlier this year, which was a good matchup and kind of eye-opening experience for the girls. I just remember after that game, they beat us 4-2, but I remember after the game, the girls kept saying, "Coach, get us back here. If you can get us back here, we want a rematch, and we want to see what we can do the second go around."
Yeah, so and that's an interesting one, right? Because here you are now, you draw Wakeland or right this the 50-50 podcast's beloved Wakeland, who we've affectionately nicknamed El Cucuy, right? Because they're awesome. They're a machine. They're incredible to watch. Coach Jimmy Langford, as well as Coach Holt on the boys' side. They've just obviously highly decorated, number of state titles, all that stuff. But so they just don't go away, right? They're just always in the mix, very consistent year in and year out. Um, how do you tackle that from the perspective of your girls? Where yes, obviously your focus is your girls, not the other team. But the fact that you've seen them once already before this year, and now here you are playing for it all this coming week. How do you approach that, knowing that you've seen them before?
I mean, it gives our girls confidence because, I mean, you see Wakeland's all their titles, you see the success they've had. They haven't lost a game this year. You see the talent they have on their roster. And if you just look them up on a piece of paper, they're scary. They're scary good. But playing them kind of gave us some confidence in that, hey, even though they beat us, we were able to score 2 goals on them. We were able to compete with them. We were able to kind of see their strengths and weaknesses against us. So we know what we have to work on at Cedar Park to be ready for Friday. But I think it's also a motivation for the girls too. It gives us the underdog role, which we love, and play with that chip on our shoulder, and hopefully we can come out and compete Friday and take it to them.
Yeah. And it was Governor's Cup, right? That's where you all played? Was it the
Yes,
Governor's Cup? Yeah.
yes.
So you look back at that Governor's Cup match when you guys played Wakeland back in January. Did you feel now that you've obviously had a ton of time to reflect and you're looking at it closely now, you reflect back on it from then to versus now, did you feel like you learned more about yourself coming out of that match, or did you feel like you learned more about just Wakeland and that next level, that next standard that it takes?
I think we learned both. We got to see what Wakeland had, and I know the game was in January. Both teams were missing people. It was still kind of near winter break, so people were out of town and stuff. But ultimately, it gave us kind of something to work towards, and uh, it was kind of a rally cry too. We didn't want to lose again, and it was kind of weird because that was the last game we've lost this season was to Wakeland. So we had a good run, and hopefully keep going and get one more on Friday.
That was the last one you lost, huh? And that was. Do you remember the date on
Yeah.
that? What was that? Like the third,
Uh,
fourth, something like that.
it was I forget it was the second game, so it was that Friday of Governor's Cup, the second week of tournaments.
Gotcha. Okay. Rafa, you got anything for Coach?
Coach, how do the girls feel about going into this game? You know, as far as like, finally getting to a state final. How do they feel about that?
They're excited. I mean, we in the playoffs, we've just taken it one game at a time, and it's kind of surreal. I don't think it's actually set in right now, and I don't think it will set in until the whole tournament's over. But I know they're excited. They believe. Our motto's been kind of like the Ted Lasso motto: believe, 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 and we keep improving and keep working on our strengths and weaknesses, and it's been a fun ride.
Great. So you talked about district championship, obviously. Well done. Congrats on that as well. But the season, district, and then the postseason, right? The state playoffs. What more have you learned? What have you guys learned about yourselves, and what have you learned about your squad during this playoff run?
Well, I mean, first you go back to district play and being in the same district as Liberty Hill and Rouse. We knew that was our big competition, and I mean, getting knocked out last year by Rouse in the playoffs kind of set the tone for this year. We wanted to take that district title back. And then going into the playoffs, I mean, we really went week by week, uh, studied our opponent, looked at them, and then fortunately got those wins. and then we look at the next week and then the next week, and just keep building on that momentum. And I think once we kept building on it, it gave us that belief and that strength that we can play with anybody in the state of Texas, and hopefully on good days get those wins. And that's what it's come down to.
Right. And you mentioned, so you play Friday, 11 a.m. So you have, that gives you what, 3.5 days, almost 4 days to prepare, plus or 3 days plus a travel, depending upon what your plans are. How do you, well, really four, since you all aren't that far. How do you handle, take us through the week ahead? What are the thoughts? What are you looking at? What, obviously we're creatures of habit, both as coaches, and we love our teams to remain in a routine. But how do you tackle it, since you've got that many days to prepare before the last game of the season on Friday?
I think it kind of helps us because instead of fitting it into 1 or 2 days, we have 4 days to train, watch film, do rehab, and all that stuff. So at Cedar Park, we work in the mornings. So I got an early morning tomorrow. We start at 6:15 and go to about 7:30. But we'll train in the mornings, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're debating right now on Thursday or not. And then in the periods, we that's our film study and our rehab, where we do yoga and we do compressions and all that stuff just to make sure the girls stay healthy. We watch film too. So it kind of benefits us in that we get to watch a lot of film and dissect the opponent and really learn from their strengths and weaknesses and kind of compare that and put it into practice and see what we can do come Friday.
Great. Again, we are talking to Coach Winston Poole, the head women's soccer coach of the Cedar Park Timberwolves, as they prepare for their state championship final match versus Frisco Wakeland on Friday, April 11th, 11 a.m. Rafa, you got anything else for Coach?
Coach, any players that really kind of risen their level of play from last season into this season that's really kind of caught your eye? Like, wow, this person has really kind of worked hard and really elevated their game for this special season.
Well, we have our three really good seniors that start for us. Sophia Peters in the back; she's going to go to UTSA, and then Meredith Colts up top, who's scored 30 plus goals on the year. They've been consistent all 4 years. What's been really a blessing is we have two really good freshmen that came in this year. One has, I think, 24, 25 goals. Blake Gilkey up top, and then Dylan Reed out wide, who unfortunately was injured most of the year, but is coming back strong during the playoffs. And having those two freshmen up top kind of really changes the dynamic of our attack up top. And then having a steady midfield, we have Brooke Pack in the midfield that's kind of holding down our midfield, but everybody else in the midfield are freshmen, sophomores. So we have a good mix of seniors, but also a good mix of young girls too that are learning the process and being able to gain this experience through the playoffs that will hopefully help them in the future.
Yeah. So a couple more for you, Coach, before we start to wrap up here. One question I got for you is this: is biggest difference in your squad between that January match versus Frisco Wakeland and now?
Confidence. I think they have gained a lot of confidence just going through the hard district that we're in, through the Region 4, and then beating Region 5 or Region 3 on Friday. I mean, I've seen a shift in confidence in them. We've talked about believing, and you can always talk about it, but when you see it through action, it really impresses you, and it really starts making everybody believe. And I think that's just been the big thing going forward is the girls believe in themselves, and when you have that power, you can compete against anybody.
Yeah, you mentioned your district, right? And I, I was at that match back in March. What was that, early early March? That your district finale versus Liberty
The
Hill. That
Liberty
was
Hill one, yes.
absolutely nuts match, a 3-3 final, and I was like, that was definitely my money's worth. I'll tell you that. It was a great match. It was definitely worth the drive. So yeah, I commend both of you all for that. But yeah, that was indicative of what's prepared you to make this run. Obviously, got one more here for you, Coach, before we start to wrap up here with you. But see if you can finish this sentence for me. the 2024-2025 Cedar Park Timberwolves will win the state title if
We score more goals than Wakeland.
ah ah let you off the hook way too easy, way too easy. Way too easy. All right, he is Coach Winston Poole, the head women's soccer coach of the Cedar Park Timberwolves. Coach, it is that time, stoppage time, where we do our honorary final thoughts with our guests. Any shout outs, thank yous, whatever's on your mind as it relates to our game. The floor is yours.
I just shout out to my family, to the Cedar Park family, to every place I've been to, Pflugerville High School, Stony Point High School. Shout out to all the Austin area teams that have made it to the final. My good friend Stefano at Liberty Hills made quite a run. Uh, Congrats to Lake Travis as well, Wimberley and Salado for joining it, and Austin Achieve as well. Uh, but just shout out to the soccer community as well. Love every one of you. It's always great getting to know all you guys. And just like we said earlier, the networking's the key thing, building these relationships through the soccer community and uh, keeping this beautiful game going.
All right, I like that, and let it be known that Coach Poole is on the record saying that they will win the state title if they can score more goals than Frisco Wakeland. So that is the in-depth analysis you will get here on the 50-50 podcast. So, Coach Poole, really appreciate you. Thank you for your time. You've been awesome. Getting to know you along the way too. Really appreciate it. You guys have been all class along the way. So very much torn being seeing this match between you all and also another good friend of the podcast and Coach Jimmy Langford. But the only I will disagree with you from the standpoint of I only wish this game was like prime time under the lights, last game of the day, because I feel that this is going to be one of the better matches that we're going to see in Georgetown, and that's saying something. But wish you the absolute best of luck, you and your girls, and hopefully you guys can go get it done.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Coach. Have a good one. Take care.
Good luck, coach.
All right, man. Special thanks to Coach Poole for joining us. Really great guy. I've really gotten along with him. I always get a crack out of here. I've heard him after I think 3 games now. Every game he sounds the same. He can barely talk. So, but what he's done there, what he's built, and seen, and Rafa, you and I know we've had plenty of conversations about Cedar Park early in the year and just the trajectory, right? The just gradual, the steps that they've been taking as a program each year, just a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, and further into the playoffs. So, not surprised one bit to see him here, knocking on the doorstep of glory here, 1 game away, right? 80 plus minutes away from a state title. Thoughts on what Coach Poole had to share?
No, like I said, they've had a sensational season this year. You know, like I said, to say something that your last loss was not till early January, that says a lot.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
especially playing at District 25 5A. I mean, you know, we talk about 26 5A, kind of we call it here in San Antonio the group of death, but in Austin for 5A, that's kind of considered the group of death there too. And when he mentioned about Leander Rouse, last year Leander High School made a big run last year. You have Liberty Hill, the Lockhart girls kind of made some noise this year early on. So that district is getting just better and better with quality soccer, and like I said, I want to be surprised if another team from maybe Liberty Hill takes that next step next year, or maybe like I said, Leander comes back. So like I said, it's always that talent pool there in that district is just one of the best in the state. It's
Mhm.
kind of like a little hidden jewel. I know Dallas area gets a lot of attention, but this is one district to keep
Yeah.
an eye on.
Somehow I just knew we weren't going to get. I know you didn't mention it directly, but I just knew we weren't going to get past this episode without some Lockhart talk. I'm expecting the barbecue talk later, so somehow knew you were going to get that in. But yeah, no, absolutely. 25 5A, incredible stuff. Although Smithson Valley did get the better of 2 of them this year, so
Yeah,
that's saying something, right? In terms of that, San Antonio schools trying to close that gap with Austin. But yeah, very talented district beyond just the 4 teams that made the playoffs for sure. So special thanks again to Coach Poole for joining us, and really appreciate his time. Wish him and his girls the best of luck. And all right, it is about that time. We are going to get ready to bring on our next guest. He is joining us for the first time here on the 50/50 podcast and Inside Texas High School Soccer. He is Coach Gerson Carrasco of Klein Kane. Did I get that right, Coach? Please tell me I got that right.
Yeah, you got it.
All right, Coach. Welcome. How you doing?
Good. Obviously excited, tired, but excited to be in the position we're in. You don't get to do this pretty much every day, So very, very excited.
Yeah, I don't think there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of coaches that would trade being tired with you right now, right? To be one of two in your class or one of four in your classification, still coaching. So this late in the season, so really congratulations to you and your boys making history, playing for your first ever state title in a few days. Has that even sunk in whatsoever?
No, honestly, it really hasn't. On the way back from the game on Friday, I was tell the guys, "Hey guys, guess what? So we're going to the final," and I just kept repeating and repeating all over again because, like, honestly, we just don't believe it. It just the moment is so surreal because like I said, I've never been in this position before. The kids never been in this position before, so it was just, we just still can't believe it, honestly.
So take us through that moment. Take us through that state semifinal, the final seconds rolling off the clock, and you're realizing, or what have you, right? The moment that it's like it becomes a reality, right? What is going through your mind, or what is not going through your mind?
Well, I mean, in this last semifinal, it was very, very interesting because we got a goal with 8 minutes left in the match, and one thing our team does is we do kind of defend very well. We have key defenders. The back line for is amazing, but they did got us on a set piece, and they scored with 2 minutes left. But then we went through the overtime, the penalties, and it just honestly just asking God for protection, asking God for strength, and one of the things is just I just whenever we score the last penalty, the only thing you can think of is just running to the field with your players because I don't know if I know I'm not playing, but I still the passion is still in me. I just feel like I need to go in there and like hug all the players. I need to make sure I thank them all for what they've done, and it just it's just a split second of like you don't know what to do, honestly.
Yeah. So take us. What's it been like with the community right now? Like beyond just the players, but maybe the family, the athletic department, the school. What's going on there?
I mean, I've this is my first year here at Klein Kane, and honestly, I didn't know where I was coming to. I didn't know what kind of school, what kind of community. But from the first day, from the first meeting I had with the booster club, with my AD, their thing to me at the end was like, Coach, what do you need to be successful? What do you need to be successful? And those are one of the things that I really appreciate from the community. Uh, and the support is incredible. I mean, like, Coach, do you want this? Coach, do you want that? And from obviously where I come from, it's not like that. So I'm always hesitant to say yes, I need this, but at the same time, the community, the admin at school, all the all the sport coaches always congratulating us, and giving us hey, you guys got it, you guys have good kids, you guys have respectful kids, and the community. I mean the fans is just it's nonstop support. The support I think has been one of the keys because parents, friends, some of my students, they're just always at the game and they just always try to support us. It's been amazing, honestly.
Yeah, Rafa.
Coach, the start of the district season, District 15, 6A is one of the toughest districts there, especially in the Houston area. Knowing that, Klein's been one of those story programs. I remember the legendary Coach Baker had those great teams in the 90s and the early 2000s. How was the feeling going into the district play? And I know this is the first time that you won the district title, too, for the school history, too, right?
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
Correct.
So how do you guys feel going into the district season?
So we came off of two tournaments. We did went to Georgetown and then we went to Kingwood tournament and but honestly, going to the district, we tied 1-1. We had a bad mistake at the back, and they capitalized. But fortunately, we hit a free kick, a very nice free kick, and we tied 1-1. And that's what you start questioning yourself right there. You're like, okay, am I the right guy for the job? am I doing the right thing? I come from 5A, now I'm in 6A. And you just, you question yourself, but then, we start, we play Klein Oak, and then we're doing well. And then, we just started picking it up. I'm trying to, tell the kids like this is what we're doing correct, this is what we're doing wrong, and from there it just took off. I think the desire of the kids of wanting to win and trying to prove all other people wrong was very very big factor on that. But like I said, it did make me think a little bit of what I was doing, because it's a very hard district. I mean, you name Tomball, Tumble Memorial, very good teams. Klein Forest, they just play you to the last minute. There's not an easy night in that district, and having to win the district was a very nice feeling. And honestly, we didn't lose a single game. We only got scored on 5 goals in 16 games, and that was my thought.
Yeah, that is awesome. So,
Mhm.
Coach, your
Yes.
first year there at Klein Oak, you don't lose a district game, you win a district title, and I mean, you're 80 plus minutes away from a state. If you win the state title, Coach, that's a walk off, man. I'd call it a career. I'd retire right then and there and be like, see you right off into the sunset, man. How do you top that?
I mean, I thought about it. Trust me, I thought about it. I'm like, after this year, if we do get the big one, I was like, I'm done. I think that's it. I'll go do something else. But yeah, no, it's been crazy because they've never won district before. They matter of fact, they've been in playoffs for the last 5 years or 4 years, and they've never won a playoff game. And early on in the season, when I was meeting the kids and meeting the captains and all the leaders, and that's one of the things they asked me about, was like, Coach, like, how do you do um with playoffs? And I was like, look, I'm not here to brag about, but I do have a little bit of experience in playoffs. You just have to listen and be coachable in those moments, and just you have to become a clutch in those key moments. But I tell you what, this year against Side Lakes, I was very nervous. Obviously, I didn't tell the kids that. I know that my kids were very nervous because the first 15 minutes we didn't play so well. It was just that getting that first win in the playoffs was very very special. It was very emotional for the kids, obviously because they've never won a playoff game before, and now we won four, which is it's crazy.
So what, you get there year one, first year, and you've experienced all this great success, right? And obviously you're a key piece of that, right? But what, from your perspective, when you start assessing, knowing kind of a little bit of the history of the program and what you were walking into to a certain extent, what worked? What clicked? When you assess that and kind of have reflect on it from time to time, maybe you haven't really totally reflected on it, but what do you feel was maybe the catalyst in the shift in your program?
I feel, obviously we do have a little bit of talent in Klein Kane, but I feel like it was the discipline. Um, I saw a lot of wrong things, small, very details that I think it matters in terms of a program, but I think their discipline wasn't where I needed to be. And I've told them, from time to time, I tell them, guys, this is what I do. This is, soccer is one of my passion. This is what I do. So I really, really care about but the little things that we do. But I'm not saying they were indisciplined, but it was just like I wanted a little more discipline, a little more structure, in practice. How do we practice? We have a long walk from our locker room to our turf, and they were walking, and I'm like, no, you're not gonna walk. You're gonna jog. To be there as much as we can. And but one of the things, like I said, is just the discipline that the kids, I think, got from me, just because it wasn't there.
Discipline. Imagine that. I love that, right? And now here you are, right? And you're right. I think oftentimes our athletes, they hear us talk about the details, the small things, and how they lead to big things, right? And now here you are on the verge of doing something very big. So couldn't agree with you more, Coach. Rafa?
Coach, how have the boys embraced the culture there? Coming in from your previous school to this, how did they embrace that?
I think they've done well. I do talk to them a lot. I think the mentally part, it's I think it's very important. So just through experience, I just talk to them about just giving them experience of what I went through my other school. I'm not saying I went through bad things, but what are the things I don't want to see. and actually the things I would love to see from them, and just talking to them about it, fixing the problem right there, because sometimes I know like we're in the final, but it's not flowers and pink every single day. It's hard work. It's sometimes they do get mad at me. They do tell me, Coach, are your practices this long? Like, we're tired. But they just I just keep talking to them about it. So
All right. Um, Coach,
yeah.
what now you handle, you're getting ready, right? So you have, if I'm not mistaken, you have the final match, right? You're in prime time on the final day, what will be or what should be the final match of the 2024-2025 season, right? And now your prize is a very good, very talented, very confident Elif L6 squad that just knocked off a very talented two-time defending champion, Katie Seven Lakes. How do you how do you all shift and prepare for that task now?
Um, you know, we actually already played them in the season. We played them at the Kingwood tournament, so we know a little
Mhm.
bit about them. And at this stage, I just tell the kids, like, you just gotta think that you're gonna play the biggest game of your life, but at the same time, just take it as a regular game. I know they did beat Seven Lakes 5-1. I watched a little bit of film on that. And honestly, we just gotta piece together all the parts of our game that way they're 100% on, because I know it will be our toughest game of the season. And like I said, preparing the players mentally, I think is going to be very important. And obviously, the little things, like I talk about, how do we defend on a 1v1? How do we transition? How do we press? Do we do a mid block press? Do we do a high press? So all those things are going to come into play, and I know the guys are ready, because they've shown it throughout these playoff games. But like I said, it's gonna be a really fun week, starting on Monday, preparing for the game. So
Yeah, awesome. We are talking to Coach Gerson Carrasco, the head men's soccer coach of Klein Kane. Coach, you mentioned that just right now, right? You look at, that's a long week, right? That you now have at your disposal. How do you, being creatures of habit and a routine, right? We try to keep them on a routine. Is there anything you'll do differently this week as you prepare for Saturday?
No, which is the same routine that we have. And one of my good friends that was at the state tournament last year, another coach, I talked to him a lot, because, first time in this position, I don't know a lot of things. And one of the things he told me, he was like, just take it one day at a time. It's just a regular game. Obviously, it's a very important game, but just keep doing what you're doing. Don't change anything. And throughout the coaches, my friends, coaches from here that I talk to, is the same way. I call them, and then I'm like, hey man, what you guys would do in this situation, and then they advise me to good things, and then that's how we assess. But no, it's just the same practice, same pre-game talks at the beginning of each practice. What do I want from them? What are my expectations? Because I always like to do that, just because they are still teenagers, and sometimes they're high, sometimes they're low. But I expect you guys to do this. This is what we're going to do. I try to explain as much as I can. That way, we're not losing much time in practice, and we can get the best practice we can.
Well said. Rafa, we got any final thoughts for Coach?
Um, any thought about winning the whole thing? Like, that feeling lifting that trophy? Any thoughts about that?
You obviously you do think about it, because you just can't. But at the same time, we're a little. It's the first time for us being here. I know Elsick has been there twice or three times, and I know they're gonna be good. I know they have really good players, and the coach is an amazing coach. But yeah, of course, we always dream, we always dream about it, and but I think the most important part is, like, let's get through those 80 minutes first, because in those games anything can happen. A little clip in the area is a penalty for them or for us, a free kick, a bad defending, a bad clearance, anything can happen in the game. So. but absolutely, I've thought about it. Not gonna lie to you, but I think it's just staying focused on those 80 minutes. I think that's one of the things I've always tried to do.
Do you sense it from your boys as far as is it the energy? You know, obviously they're excited. The anxiety, is it in there? Is it? Do you draw a sense of confidence knowing that you've seen Elsick already one time this year? How? What are you getting? Not from your perspective as the coach, but what are you picking up from your boys, your squad?
From the boys, it's a little different because we have a lot of different characters. We have start obviously starting 11, but we have the guys that come off the bench. The guys that the guys that are staying there, I think they're confident about it. But they understand. They realize that that we coming from the bottom, obviously. And then now we're in the state final, and they understand it. And that's one of the key thing of our team, that they're very they know where they are. They know where they are. They know who they are. And that's basically that's what I feel from them. I do feel excitement. I do feel like the desire. I think one of the things, obviously, it's just the fact that the kids, they just don't quit. They just defend so well. They run. I've asked them during games. I've asked them for crazy things. Like my number 10, he has to cover a lot of ground, and I know number 10s usually don't like to run as much. But just that stuff is it's just very good to know that you have it on your team.
We are talking with Coach Gerson Carrasco, the head men's soccer coach of Klein Kane. Coach, we start to wrap up here. I got one more question for you. What is the biggest difference from your squad back in maybe first, second week of January to today? What would you say is the biggest difference?
I would say the chemistry from that we've been playing. The chemistry from the kids is, they obviously, when we start, I brought in a new formation to play that from the previous year, and they were very used to it. And just knowing where to be, how to defend. If somebody clear the ball, that we understand we got to win the second ball, and just the chemistry. And I'm not only talking about chemistry during the game, but also like in practice, in the locker room, when we go to on the bus. All that chemistry, I think, has played a big important part. Some of the players have come to me and said, "Coach, thank you so much for creating this team, because we weren't like this last year, or as close as last year." And I think one of the things, like I said, is just the chemistry of the kids has been amazing.
Well said. Love that. Love that. And just talking about the difference, what a difference a year can make is pretty awesome. Coach, this is that time, right? Our stoppage time, our traditional part where we let coaches share any shout outs, thank yous, anything that's on their mind as far as it relates to their team, their school, their athletic department, what have you. The floor is yours.
Now, just shout out to my wife. We have two little ones, and she's at every game. I don't know how she does it, but shout out to my wife, and the whole athletic department, Coach Clancy, Coach Young, and just how they support me as well. Our booster club, our parents, they're just been really, really amazing. A couple of coaches that I talk to a lot, Chad Monk, Jed Gardner, Jeremy Kaufman, Joel from Langham Creek, Joshua Kluka from Dobie now. So, all that's my circle. And like I said, we talk every week, and we share, and that's basically my shout out to.
Smart man. You started with your wife. Smart man.
Absolutely.
Always.
Absolutely.
Coach Canasco, really appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. I think this is a fascinating story. I wish you the absolute best of luck, you and your boys. And as you go up, you got a tall task, right, in Eli Felsek, but I feel that I know you guys will be game. I know you'll have them ready, and I know we'll be in store for a great 6A final. So wishing you the absolute best of luck. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
Take care, Coach. Have a
Coach.
good one. Great stuff. What a just great energy, right? Great energy, great vibe. What
Hmm.
he's done, what he's done there. His boys have bought into him and what he's about, and now here and look, and here they are, right? Here they are, and obviously, as he said, right, humbly, he said they have talent, but I mean, just when the talent was always there, right? But now they bought in. disciplined, stopped doing things their way, started doing things a different way, and now here they are. So pretty exciting stuff. Thoughts on what Coach Carrasco had to share, Coach?
Yeah, just the change of culture there really have changed things there at Klein Kane, and that sometimes some programs need that. You know, you mentioned they may have the talent, but maybe they're missing an ingredient. You know, the lack of
Hmm.
discipline, or you know, or our sense of direction, or at some, or even an identity as a team too. And you know, him going into that this situation, you know, it's great that you know they really rallied around him, gave him what he needed to do to be able to succeed, and for the you know the boosters and his administrators to really hand him the keys and believe him, and be able to you know help them out. You know, this is the big payoff. You know, and I'm sure they probably didn't think they were going to get to this point, but here
Right.
they are. They're one step away from you know from winning a state championship, and you know win or lose, I could say this is I guess probably one of the greatest stories as far as you know to hear. Like I said, really changing a program around, and in and now he set, like I said, win or lose, he now sets the tone for the next year. You know, for
Yeah.
the next group. You know,
Yeah.
the expectations are going to be high, but also the level where he expect the players to be at. You know, they leave that legacy, and I mean, like I said, you're going to have kids wanting to play cane soccer. You know, from the middle schools on up. So
Yeah.
it's just that change of a culture really makes a difference.
Yeah. Just, I mean, that's pretty fascinating, right? You talk about
Yeah.
first year not losing a single district game, winning a district title, and then if you win, you win a state title to top that off. It's like, dude, I was like, I don't. What do you do? What do you do from there, right? The next thing, only thing you can do now is follow it up your second year, go completely undefeated, and win a back-to-back state title, right? But coach, not putting those not putting those pressures on you, but like it's
Yeah.
pretty fascinating stuff. So special thanks to both Coach Poole and Coach Carrasco for joining us as they prepare for their respective state title matchups. Rafa, that's going to do it for the majority of our first half of our show. We still got the second half. We're going to talk a little bit more. We're going to talk some regional finals and state semifinals talk a little bit, wrap up there, and then we'll shift our way and we'll start doing our finals preview. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a quick word from our partners. Looking to step up your social media marketing game? Well, let us tell you about our great friends at Gipper. Gipper is a way that schools, athletic departments, ADs, and coaches create world-class marketing content. Join over 4,000 coaches, ADs, SIDs, and club directors who use Gipper to create high-quality visual branded graphics for your program. The best part? Anyone can do it in seconds on any device without needing any design experience whatsoever. If you do have significant design experience, you're going to love this as well, as you are what they call the power user, and this is designed with you in mind as well. And just for being a listener and supporter of the 50/50 podcast, you can receive savings immediately and save 10% off any first-time Gipper purchase. Simply visit gipper.com/partner/5050 to learn more. Again, that's gipper.com/partner/5050. And then there are our great friends at Global Scarves, both Bill and Kyle. They are the top providers of custom knitted scarves, beanies, and other fan merchandise in the U.S. All merch is fully custom with free design services and free shipping on all orders. They do so much more, guys, than just scarves. Blankets, beanies, you name it, it's all designed and all customized to your specifications and needs. You can contact them at info@glowscarves.com to get any free designs or quotes built out for your school, club, or maybe even a supporters group. Simply mention the podcast or use the code #5050pod and they will be sure to take care of it. All right, and we are back. Episode 10, Inside Texas High School Soccer. Great stuff. I mean, we had 3 great interviews here, and cannot tell you how much fun it's been. You know, from Coach Simeone joining us, talking about coaching education and that advanced national. If you want to do that here this summer, blended course, 4 courses in June, July, and then the final, the in-person part in July out at West Texas A&M. Get on top of that. That is some great stuff, great opportunity. And it's a one-stop shop. It's very, I'm not going to say it's cheap, but very inexpensive, and you get a ton of bang for your buck. And then both Coach Poole and Coach Carrasco for joining us as well really appreciate them. Any takeaways after these first three interviews, Coach? Any big takeaways?
Just great stuff from some pretty great coaches. One from the education side, and and two who are one step away from lifting that trophy this weekend in Georgetown.
Yeah, yeah. And here as we start manipulating how I want to have these guys come out here. So, but first thing we are going to do, we're gonna discuss first some talk on our both our regional finals and state semifinals here as they've wrapped up and we've made it to the pinnacle here, which is next week, April 10th through the 12th, with our state final. But before we do that, Coach, thoughts on when we look back on these regional finals and these state semifinals, obviously very different, right? Very different format that we had to get used to. Some good, some bad. Thoughts? Any one, two, maybe big takeaways from stuff that you saw?
Just like I said, some. I think the biggest difference was the travel for both the regional finals and the state semifinals. You're used to having a regional tournament during the weekend, and then also you have the state semifinals would normally be starting on Wednesday, and then some teams have to play back to back, or you know it's like a full long. So there was there was some traveling done, but there were some teams that didn't have to travel too far because, like I said, they were close by for regional finals and state semifinals. But out of it, we saw some teams that there were some favorites that made it in, and you had some that were the surprises, and like I said, the one big surprise I know we kind of got a little flack on the bracketology. I know Harry was on it was the Grapevine girls. What a great run they had. Not the
Yeah.
best season, but they flipped the switch in the playoffs. Just fell a game short from getting to the state final, and but what can you say about that? You go to a clean slate when you get to the playoffs, and anything can happen. And they took full advantage of that opportunity, and they looked past what happened,
Hmm.
and look what they did. And then you have other teams as well. Like I said, you saw, like I mentioned, like Cedar Park. They've had a great run this year.
Yeah.
Um, the Elifelsic boys knocking off a two-time defending state champ. And convincingly too. Not a lot of teams can say that they can really convincingly beat a Seven Lakes team that especially with that score. So.
Right.
Um, and then you have some first timers like the Wimberley girls. They're making the first time appearance to a state, state final. Actually,
A
we
lot
have
of
two teams from the
a lot
same.
of a lot of first timers plus 26 4A. They're both in Davenport and Wimberley. Yeah. So
Yeah,
who
we
who would have
mentioned.
thought who would have thought of all the districts that it's a 4A, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So yeah, we mentioned about a possibility having two state champions from the same district, and and it's coming from Ray. So it's a lot of interesting scenarios leading into this week in Georgetown. But
Yeah.
like I said, you have some great matchups going in, and but like you mentioned, like Klein Kane's playing Ailey Vilsic. It's basically an all Houston final if you look
Yeah.
at it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's exactly
So
what it is.
normally we accustomed to see it all Dallas, usually in Dallas, not this time around.
Right. No, no.
So it's
Yeah, and we're going to discuss that too. We're going to kind of look at a regional breakdown by the at the end of these. So, but yeah, we're going to go ahead and take a look at this here. So again, obviously, you know where we're at. Whoop, let me start here. Okay, so we are going to start here with our. We're going to highlight here. We're going to go through our state championships, state championship matchups here. So our 4A's D1 state championships slated for Thursday, April 10th, 6:30 p.m. Castleberry out of Region 1 versus Salado, Region 3. Thoughts on this, Coach?
first timers going in. But what are you gonna say about Castleberry? They've actually been knocking on the door the last couple of years.
Right,
They just
right.
kind of fell a little short, but they've established themselves as becoming a really good program out in Region One. I know Diamond Hill Jarvis gets a lot of the attention. Same thing with St. Ellie, but you got to give it a Castleberry taking advantage and getting through, and then Salado. As far as like I said, I won't talk this as far as the circumstances just yet, but you know,
Mhm.
but they still had to get through a grind. They had to win their by district. Like I said, it was a tough road to get to, like, especially to the state semifinals. Region three is not a, for 4A soccer. It is a gauntlet. You got some quality teams. You got your Lumbertons, and you had some, like I said, Brookshire Royal. There, that was another good team from there. So it's,
Hmm.
you have to, like I said, but kudos, like I said, kudos to them to get to to this point, and it should be should be an even game. I think it's an even sided game. You can't really pick a favorite.
Right.
Um, like I said, but it's going to be a fun and exciting game this Thursday.
Yeah. So as I start manipulating here these windows a little bit, the so let's get into it a little bit. So we talk about, so Salado ends up here by no fault of their own, right? No fault of their own in
Mhm.
terms of, not going to say by default, but by virtue of a forfeit from Progresso. And a lot of us across the state may not be familiar with the details. I don't know. I don't know anybody that 100% knows the true details, right? 100%. But uh, we saw Progresso in the literally the 11th hour be told that they were not going to be allowed to play in the state semifinal here in San Antonio the other day. Take us through that from your perspective, because you were on site, Coach. Give us
Mhm.
that perspective from what you saw, what you were hearing, what was unfolding, and then ultimately the outcome, what it looked like.
So I kind of, like I said, one of the first few to report this, and so I got a message, I think, from you guys. I think also, I think from Harry, from one of the reporters from the Valley, had posted something on X, and while I was there at the game, I did notice both teams were warming up. I did notice the Progressive coaching staff was not on the field, and it seemed kind of odd. Like, you would think the coaches would kind of be ready, pre warm ups and so forth.
Right.
And then once I got the message and I read it, like, oh, something's going on here. So I spoke to some people in Salado and I asked them, hey, do you know anything that's going on? Have they told you? And they were totally clueless. And I met with another person there that was actually scouting the game. He was from Nevada community, scouting for them, and he didn't even know about this too. And so he was on the phone with his coach, letting him know what the situation was going on. And just about maybe 5 minutes, like I said, they allowed both teams to warm up. 5 minutes right before the kickoff, that's when they made the announcement that the game was being canceled and that Progresso had a forfeit due
Right.
to violation. And like I said, once I got that information, I posted it out on X to notify everybody, like, hey, this is what's going on. And the UIL did make a decision actually 3 hours before actually 4 hours before the game time. And I think that what the delay was, I think Progresso was trying to appeal the decision. I think, I guess, with their administration higher ups, they're trying to see if they can get back into the game. UIL said no, and they awarded, like I said, so they had to forfeit the game and awarded Salado the win, and Salado's in the state final here for Division One. So yeah, a lot of, and when I was watching, like I said, I can tell a lot of the dejection from the Progresso players,
Right.
and the
Right.
parents were not very happy, and they were very confused about the situation. And then what broke through was, as far as the violation, as far as some paperwork for a transfer that was not reported. And like I said, that's one of the reasons why it led to this, the game being, from them being, like I said, disqualified, from that game, and pretty much had to forfeit all the wins because of that player being, an eligible player.
Right, right. So, in the aftermath of that, you've had time to process that a little bit. What are your thoughts a few days removed from that? Between the conversations we've had, obviously, as a team, what you've heard, our sources, what we've heard from our different sources as well. You've had time to process that a little bit. What's your takeaway? What are your thoughts on that now, a few days removed?
Yeah, I read a lot of the comments as far as, you know, looking at a lot of from the Progresso side, how thought this was very unfair. Why did the wet UIL waited this, time and so forth. And then there's other sources out there that are kind of putting their little 2 cents. And what they need to realize, UIL is going to it's basically a due process. They want to make sure they get it right. They're going to get it right. They're going to investigate it. maybe that's why maybe they took this time to, maybe took to this point to realize, there was a violation.
Hmm.
And to me, even reading the comments from the coach from Progresso, it was just a head scratcher. Kind of, he made it seem like like he didn't know he did something wrong. And like,
Yeah.
well, I've been a high school coach. When you have a transfer, you have to submit that paperwork right away to the UIL because they have to determine his eligibility if they can play or not, regardless of whatever the situation. And
Right.
that,
Right.
like I
Right.
said, they do have to present that case. And I know firsthand, like we have like someone that we know they had to do that because they had to transfer from one school to another. They had to sit out a year, but they're going to play varsity next year. That's the key to this, for them to be very naive about not sending that paperwork, especially when they took a course. And a lot of the high school coaches have to take this course, it's for regarding transfers and so forth.
Mhm.
And the comments he kind of made it seem like he didn't know and all that. That in itself, it's very irresponsible and also very selfish. And I'm also a little surprised too that this was not also caught early on, especially from his athletic department and so forth. Say, hey, we do need his paperwork to kind of send this in. So, like I said, I know down there they're very not happy about it. They felt that it was biased and so forth. But rules are rules, and that's one of the things the UAL has. As long as you follow the rules, they'll make a determination. And especially, like I said, the player, no fall on him, but because he's like I said, he's a student. The responsibility goes back to that coaching staff. You
Correct.
know, he so he could have sat out transferring back. He probably had to sit out a year, and I know he was a sophomore. He could have just sit out 1 year and be ready to play his junior year, and probably would have been a non-issue.
Yeah. And there were
But
two different reports, right? There was one
mhm,
one that it was involving just a single student athlete, and then there was
yeah,
another one, uh, not confirmed, that it involved more than one, right? But either
more,
way,
yeah,
either way, the one that was known in terms of the one individual student was, I think the issue at hand, the mix-up, what have you, the confusion, if you will, was as the way the story goes, at least, is the student athlete started at Progresso the school year, left at a certain point in the school year for personal reasons, family, what have you, and then
hmm
things are worked out, and student athlete comes back to Progresso, and obviously there, in terms of rules, right, there's an issue there, right? There's an issue there, and there's a process for that to be done, and it just doesn't sound like that was done correctly in this case.
hmm yeah. I think they assumed that he went back to his home original school, that he was going to be allowed to play. But like I said, like him transferring to I guess with the school down there, I believe it was Palmview. He had to sit out a year,
Yeah.
because of that. And thinking maybe going back, I'll get my eligibility. Well, it doesn't work that way, because if it was, then we have a big mess here
Yeah.
around the
Yeah.
state of Texas.
Yeah. Yeah.
People, what? I'm not happy here. It's kind of what the mess you see right now in college. Hey, I'll go here 1 year and I'm gonna come back. I'll go to this other place the next year.
Right. Right.
Luckily, we don't have that mess
Yeah,
in
and there
Texas.
is there is something to be said, right? Whether you agree with it or not, it's more of a matter of understanding. In the UAL's defense, right? I think it's easy if you're on the outside looking in. I think it's easy to say, well, hey, they should have done something sooner, or they should have. The issue is if there's an active investigation going on, and you can only act off the existing information you have as the investigation is ongoing. So they have to ensure that this has to play out to a certain extent, to where they know that they've gotten it right, the investigation, right? And that's the point of the hearing, right? It's going to go in one direction, in favor for, or in favor against that school and that athlete. But they got to make sure that they get it right,
hmm
even if the timing doesn't line up. The unfortunate piece is, right, the number of schools that were, for lack of better words, that were wronged along the way on Progresso's run in the playoffs, right? But then you can make that argument for everybody in their district play as well, everybody that they played this year, right? So it's a tough one, I know, but definitely, hopefully, some tough
hmm
lessons are learned. But I hope that athletic departments, athletic administrators down there, coaches are better for it in the future. So, All right, we move on. We'll look at our 4A D2 state championship slated for Thursday, April 10th, 1:30 p.m. This is Region Gainesville out of Region 2 versus Austin Achieve out of Region 4. Thoughts on this one, Coach?
Some a couple first timers, that are have their a goal and opportunity, like I said, to win their first ever state championship, and
And Austin Achieve's
um,
been knocking on the door. Yeah.
yeah, last year, like I said, we talked to the coach for Northeast early college. He said that they split the season with them, and like I said, they had won the district last year. They made a deep run, and I think they fell short. I think Bernie is the one that eliminated them last year, um, but they're like I said, they were an up and coming program, and things fell for them here in like I said in Division Two, and they had a great win on the state semifinals, and here they are. Uh, they're in their backyard, able to win opportunity to win a state championship, and then Gainesville. I think Gainesville, you can kind of say kind of a true Cinderella. No one really hasn't been on the radar. They're not
Right,
as far as
right.
an established teams. And we had some good established teams. I mean, if you think of Region Two, you're thinking of teams like Palestine or Kilgore. Um, you know, and you would, even Sulphur Springs. You would think, you would probably see one of those three here, but you didn't think Gainesville would be one of them, and
Yeah,
you got to give props to them, and they've made a great run, and like I
right.
said, I think this will be a great game to watch, and I think it can go either way, but congrats to both teams. They made it to make it this far, and like I said, you never know what can happen in the playoffs.
Yeah. Lots of surprises along the way, and I know we had discussed. We thought that we were going to see our boys out of Diamond Hill Jarvis in here somewhere in between,
Hmm.
at the 4A level, and they're not here either, right? So very, very fascinating stuff here. And all right, we move on to the 5A D1 Boys State Championship slated for Friday, April 11th, 6:30 p.m. in what I think is going to be also a very fascinating matchup, right on the boys, just total, right, boys or girls side. But Walnut Grove out of Region 2, a squad that we've been very big on all year, all very consistent. Both of these squads have been constantly somewhere in the RPI pretty much all year. We've been very high on both of these programs all year. Walnut Grove out of Region 2 versus San Antonio Southwest making their deepest run and their first ever appearance in a state title match out of Region 4. Thoughts on this one, Coach?
What can you say? This is going to be probably the highlight for Friday night. This is the game to watch. And what can you say about San Antonio Southwest? They've had an excellent season. They set the bar high. Their slogan was "State or Bust," and like I said, they're one game away from lifting that trophy. They had a very convincing win against Angleton, another convincing win against defending region champion Leander Glenn. I was at that one wild game against Piper that was back and forth, but they were able to pull away. And like I said, they're hitting on nice cylinders, but they're running to a team that's also just as good as them. That's also gone through the gauntlet as well. They've played some tough teams there in the Dallas area, especially like I said, their district with McKinney North. We were high on McKinney North and Lovejoy, and like I said, they had a very convincing win against the El Paso Medicos team too. So
Mhm.
um, this is going to be a very evenly matched game. It's going to depend on who can instill their style of play. I think who can dictate the pace, dictate the possession, and also I think getting the lead early on can
Yeah,
really kind of get the momentum. I think whoever gets the lead is going to have a really good, like I said, a really good shot at kind of controlling the game, and and end up winning it. So like I said, if you have a chance, like I said, make sure to head out there Friday night in Georgetown. This is going to be a real dynamite game.
yeah. And I have a feeling this is an interesting one because both of these teams can score a lot and they can score quickly.
Mhm.
So you kind of get it's a weird one because it's a little almost a conundrum where you can see you can almost get the impression that no lead is safe in this match, but at the same time, you can see one team really put it on and just kind of get hot and pull away, run away from the other one, right? So it could be either one of those, or just a tight game, start to finish, right? So it's a very just very interesting matchup, right? I think it's going to be a fascinating game. Thoughts on who you like in this one?
Um, I think if Southwest can really play their game, and really kind of jump on them early, I think they have a good shot at winning this. Um, but they also, you look at Walnut Grove, what they've done. They haven't lost. They haven't lost a game, and
Mhm.
they've beaten some really quality. Not saying that Southwest has beaten some quality teams. Um, Walnut Grove has been some really also great, some say caliber teams. I think what it comes down to, who can set the tone and who can set the pace. Um, you know, Southwest hasn't faced a team from Region Two or Region One, Region One, Region like a Dallas area team. So this is going to be interesting. I think this will be one of their first true tests. Um, they're both evenly matched. They're both deep. Both these teams are deep on benches. Like I said, it's going to come down to two things: style of play, who can impose their style of play, and number two is going to be down to coaching. Who's going to make the right decisions on the
Right.
field, the right substitutions? I think those are the two key factors going into who wins the state championship.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Great stuff. And we move on to our 5A D2 Boys State Championship, slated for Friday, April 11th, 1:30 p.m. Out of Region 2, Highland Park versus Region 4. You're seeing a pattern here, right? Kind of lots of Region 2, lots of Region 4. And out of Region 4, Liberty Hill. Again, this is 5A D2 Boys State Championship, slated for Friday, April 11th, 1:30 p.m. Thoughts on this one, Coach?
Well, you normally what you think you would see El Cucuy here out of Region Two,
Right.
in this game, but it turns out it'll be one of their district opponents, which is
District
Highland
opponent.
Park. So Highland Park, like I said, they had a great win over Humistic Petit in the last game, and uh, they're hitting it on high cylinders, and they're going to be very formidable coming in into. But then look what Liberty Hill has done. Really, nobody kind of looked at them this year. I know they were going to be they were going to be a tough team. They were going to be a slouch. Like I said, I thought they were maybe one or two deep, but I think a lot of people never imagined that they could knock. Like I said, they knocked off a really good Brownsville Lopez team. On the way. Like I said, another big win here in the state semifinals. You know, uh, you
Dude,
know,
can we talk about that
with that,
state
with
semifinal
the,
shootout? Because
yeah,
I was
and
like,
those
what they go
penalty kicks.
13,
Yeah,
14 shooters deep, I think.
uh,
Yeah, that was like I don't know if I've ever seen a shootout go have a halftime in between in between because it was like almost 30 minutes long, right? But yeah, just to see them go on this run, right? And here they are in the state final. If a lot of people told you that they were picking Liberty Hill to be here right now, besides other than them, right, they'd be lying to you. So yeah, definitely, this is a fascinating matchup. Thoughts? Who do you favor in this between Highland Park and Liberty Hill?
well, you would think Highland Park would be the favorite, but you
Correct.
know Highland Park cannot take
Which
Liberty.
is exactly what Liberty Hill wants.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Liberty Hills needs. I think they've gone into pretty much every game in this playoff. Is like, what do we have to lose? We're not the favorite. No one expected us to go this deep, and um, plus the games, like I said, is just just down the road. Not too far away. So I'm sure they're gonna have all their fans there. They're gonna I think that'll pump them up, and having that support's gonna help, and but also maybe a little bit intimidating also against Highland Park. 'Cause like I said, they're coming out from the Dallas area, so they might not have all their fans there compared to Liberty Hill, and like I said, that could come into play. Like I said, Highland Park will be the favorite, but it wouldn't shock me if Liberty Hill. Like that's the thing, Liberty Hill's finding a way to win. They found a way to win on those that penalty shootout against Lake Creek, and
Yeah. Yeah.
you never know. Maybe this time around we go 20 rounds of PKs. Hopefully not, but um,
That game's at 1:30, so factor that in.
yeah.
But
So,
yeah, yeah,
uh, but should be a good one. But like I said, I know Highland Park's the favorite, but like I said,
yeah.
but they cannot take Liberty Hill lightly.
Yeah. And thank you to all our listeners listening around all across the state and got a couple of different states around the country as well. Really appreciate you. We got over 850 strong across all platforms. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Really appreciate you all. as we dive in here and look at our state finals. All right, we move on to this boys 6A D1 state championship slated for Saturday, April 12th, 6:30 p.m. This is the prime time. This will be the what will be the last soccer match of the 2024-2025 season. We had Klein Kane in here earlier, Coach Carrasco, out of Region 2, Klein Kane making their first appearance ever in the state title versus on in the same year that they win their first ever district title. That's pretty amazing stuff, right? Taking on out of Region 3, the great program with the great pedigree in Elif Elsik, coming off of a tremendous victory, as we mentioned earlier, knocking out the defending state champions in Katy Seven Lakes in interesting match, how that unfolded. But thoughts on this one, Coach? This is a very intriguing matchup on all,
Yeah,
and as you said, setting up an all Houston final here.
yeah, this is an all Houston final here, which, like I said, it's really kind of hasn't happened in quite some time. Normally we have like a Houston Dallas matchup or Houston Austin, but this, like I said, this game really is gonna be it's gonna be a good one. And one thing about ALFL, like they've kind of, if you look at their playoff run, they've really run the gauntlet. They've played some really tough teams like Houston Lamar, Atascocita. You mentioned Seven Lakes, and then when a lot of people don't talk about the state semifinal, they had to beat a really good Cedar Ridge team who also had an excellent season too.
Right.
Here in Region 4, they got a 1-0 win. Now I'm wondering if all of that, all those wins, especially that win, against playing these teams, it doesn't catch up to them. You know, you know, be spent going into this game. But luckily, how the format is, I think they'll be ready to go. But I think Klein Kane, like I said, I know there's just something special about this season for them. Um, I think the underdog role kind of, like I said, they had really, like I said, this coming into this year, nothing to lose, and this is going to be a real tough test. I know they faced each other once, but you always make, like I said, you're a totally different team from January to now, and like I said, and I know Coach Cross mentioned about the chemistry with the team. They've really bought into his culture of, his style of play, his culture,
Right.
and that could be the factor this time because, like I said, early on they were still learning that process, and now they are hitting it all cylinders. This, like I said, this is going to be a lot closer game than that first one. And like I said, Alif Helsa cannot take them lightly, and like I said, they're going to be the favorite. But like I said, I think this can go back and forth, and it'd be what a true story for a program to win it all. For the first time, first district title, first regional title, and maybe first state title.
Yeah. You have a favorite here? Who do you like?
I mean, yeah, the favorite's got to be Elsick. I mean, like I said, look at what they look at the resume as far as the playoffs. I'm not saying that Kane doesn't have it either, but I think when you knock off a two-time defending state champion and you do it convincingly, that'll really raise your confidence level. You know, to to knowing that you know what, if we can beat these guys, we can beat anybody.
Well, the
And like I
question
said,
becomes here, right? Yeah, their confidence is high, but now they got to go on this like almost what is that? A week long break, right?
mhm.
Before this next match. So yes, they recover. Yes, they get some rest. But sometimes the best thing in this case, the best thing you want to do when you come off of a win like that is get right back on the horse, right, and
Mhm.
just and play again. So now they got to wait for a little while. So does that become a big emotional drop off right after this huge win over Katy Seven Lakes, who and rightfully so, right, Coach Kruger there at Katy Seven Lakes, that you were going to have to take the title from them, right? They weren't just going to give it up, right? They were like, and that's exactly what Ailey Felsig did. A very talented squad, a very well coached squad, very high, lots of quality. So how will that affect them, right, from their perspective? Yes, they'll be ready, right? But again, we have to remember when we're still talking about 14 to 18-year-olds, it's tough, right? It's always tough in terms of the consistency level. So yeah, that'll be an interesting one to see how they handle that. But all right, we move on. All right, our next one, our 6A boys 6A D2 state championship slated for Saturday, April 12th at 1:30 p.m. Out of Region 2, Mesquite, the Skeeters making their first trip, all right, along with out of Region 3, Vandergrift. Just kind of seems like a squad that people weren't talking about, either of these two, right, to be here maybe. Vandergrift, obviously lots of talent, right, but if both people, if anybody was telling you that, hey, yeah, this was going to be my 6A D2 state championship 3, 4 weeks ago, again, I don't know how many people would be telling you the truth. Thoughts on this one, Coach?
This is gonna be another, I think, evenly matched game. What you can say is Vandergrift. Remember, they did win the region last year. They made it to the state tournament. Just fell a little short. I think they were knocked off. I believe by I'm trying to say. I'm trying to remember for who they lost to. I believe it was Seminole Lakes who they lost to last year.
I think
All
that
the
sounds
way.
right. That sounds right.
No, they lost. I think they lost. No, they lost to Flower Mountain. So they lost to
Was
Flower
it?
Mountain in the
Oh, yeah,
semifinals.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, never mind,
Yeah,
never mind.
so
Yeah,
yeah. So they lost to Flower Mountain in the semifinals 2-0, and so they're back at it now. They took the next step. Now they got to the game, and we kind of thought maybe Vandergrift would maybe take a step back because they did graduate some key players last year, but they found a way, and they now there's a they're a great opportunity here
hmm,
to finally lift the trophy, which kind of is disappointing for last year. But I'm sure last year's experience has really helped them this year, and
right.
it's put them in a really good position to be able to win it. But what are you going to also say about Mesquite? Mesquite, Mesquite ISD has been kind of haven't been on the radar for soccer. This year has been their year. You saw Mesquite
Yeah,
Petit when we talked to Coach last week, and some of the other teams, and finally, I think this might be the first. I think maybe the first Mesquite team for the boys side. I think to make a state final game, and
correct.
so
It
some
is. It's their
great. I
first,
think great
their first
first.
appearance.
Yeah, so a great opportunity also for them. Like I said, you have your Dallas versus Austin kind of matchup, and it's like I said I think both teams will be ready to go, and I know be some nervousness because, like I said, I think more for the Mesquite team because this is their first time. Vandergrift, I think, because they do have the experience playing there at Birkerbach, because they had the experience from last year. Like I said, I think they're focused. So, but it should be a good one. I will give I think the edge to Vandergrift because they've been there. But like I said, they can't take Mesquite lightly, and but it should be a good one.
Yeah, yeah, and and this is one you hit on something there. That one. This is we discussed this what probably about 2 months ago, maybe 6 weeks ago. Excuse me. Is that this is the byproduct of seeing the Division 1, Division 2 split, right? Rightfully so, whether you like it or not, disagree with certain aspects of it, the structure, what have you. The cool thing to see about this is you're seeing teams like 50, what is that? 50% of this, just this 6A field is in their first ever state title game, right? So you're seeing programs break through that maybe before couldn't, maybe could only get to a regional quarterfinal or a regional semifinal, or maybe to a regional final, but couldn't break through all the way. And now here they are in a state final, right? So this is the awesome part of this particular format. So, all right, we move on. That does it for the boys, and we move on to the girls. 4A Division 1 state championship slated for Thursday, April 10th, 4 p.m. The three-time reigning and defending state champion out of Region 2, the Salina Lady Bobcats, versus another, I guess, can we call them the upstart, right, out of Region 4, the Davenport Lady Wolves, making their first appearance in the state title match. And these are two programs that are very familiar with each other, right? And Coach Adams out of Salina has made it a point to make sure that he can see Davenport regularly. And this has been Davenport is a program that's been knocking on the door, building to this moment. So it's awfully awesome to see them break through as well. But Salina comes in here, Coach, looking to make the ultimate history on the girls' side and become the first program to win 4 consecutive state championships for the girls' side. Thoughts on this one?
This gonna be a great game. This is like I guess like I'll say like this rematch. Not saying a rematch, but this is the second time Salina plays a team from that same district from last year from the Bernie girls. So Devonport's coming in this season. They fell short last year in the regional final. Two of the Bernie girls who ended up playing Salina. Um, and like I said, Davenport's got some momentum. I actually got the pleasure of watching them play a very good Lavernia team. That game was very. I know the score doesn't show. It was a very tight game, and then it just the floodgates kind of opened to the end. But Davenport, big win against Salado, which I know for us, we thought maybe it would be a Salado versus Salina matchup. Because Salado, I got to see them back in February. I call them the Blitzkrieg because they, pour on goals, but Davenport found a way to kind of slow him down and get that three
They
two
they
win.
they
And
blitzed the blitzkrieg. So
yeah,
yeah, yeah. And a shout out to Riley Reisdorf with a tremendous
mm,
goal late in the match, right? I think with about what 8 minutes
yeah.
left to that was the difference maker. Thoughts on this one in terms of who do you tough to go against Salina, right? And what they've built and Coach Adams, the amount of talent, the depth. But in terms of matchups, right? Thoughts on clearly Salina is the favorite, right? But who do you like in this?
I don't think you can go against Salina on this one. Like I said, they've just been the staple of girls soccer, regardless of the classification. And the opportunity to do win a fourth one in a row.
Hmm.
I mean, and then like I said, we actually picked before the start of the season. We picked they were one of the teams we picked to repeat.
Right.
Well, four-peat, I guess you can say. Um, and here they are. It's like I
Yeah.
said, it's been basically become the Salina Invitational here. they're in Georgetown. So,
Well, and
but
the thing about it, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Coach. Go ahead.
oh, the thing is, like I said, they still have to show up and play but still they're gonna have a tough opponent with Davenport. So I know
Yeah.
they're not gonna take them lightly, and like I said, you never know what can happen here. A ball can bounce in your favor here, or a foul, whatever, and it could change things. So, but like I said, Salina's been there, done that. This is the first time for Davenport. This is kind of uncharted waters for them. Can they handle being in the spotlight? Being at the big dance. The final dance. Can they handle that pressure? But like I said, they are an underdog, and they say, hey, they really got nothing to lose here, so that also can come be a factor, into this game.
You look at where Davenport is. Excuse me. You look at where Davenport is, and this is, I mean, this is where Salina was about 4 or 5 years ago, right?
Hmm.
In terms of building, building towards this moment, and then they have, they arrive, and they're in a final versus the then Salina, which was Midlothian Heritage, and they go and they play them in an unbelievable final. Still one of the best matches I've seen in the last 5 years, and that was their moment where they arrived, right? And they haven't looked back since. Haven't looked back since, and now here they are trying to make history. So from Davenport's perspective, Davenport was where Salina was 4 or 5 years ago. So are they, they're building, they've been building towards this. They're well developed, lots of talent as well. Is this, will the moment be too big for them, or is this the moment where they arrive, right? And maybe they, not going to say, because Salina will be prepared. Coach Adams will have them ready. They got a ton of talent. But does this have the opportunity, right, for Davenport to where this is their moment where they officially arrive, and kind of a changing of the guard, if you will. Salina will be ready. Davenport is going to be ready as well. Davenport's not going to make it easy for Salina. They'll compete, but this will definitely be an interesting matchup. Again, this is slated for Thursday, April 10th, 4 p.m. All right, we move on. We look at our girls 4A Division II state championship slated for Thursday, April 10th, 11 a.m. out of Region 1, Randall, right? We talked about this with Kevin Gomez, right, out of Yellow City Soccer, who is very big on this group, and now here they are representing the Panhandle, the Greater Panhandle area, in in the state title match out of Region 1, and then out of Region 4, also in the same district as Davenport, out of 26 4A, if I'm not mistaken, out of Region 4, Wimberley. A Wimberley squad that I know I'm not going to say you disagreed with me on, but I know I was I was a little bit bigger on them, I think, than many other people were. Thoughts on this one, Coach?
Yeah, this is gonna be probably one of the really tight games out of the start to start the state championships. What do you say about Canyon Randall? I mean, those girls have done a great year. Um, Coming from the Pandora area, and that mentioned Kevin mentioned about them being one of the favorites, out of that, and can were they able to take the next step and knock off that Region Two team from the Dallas area, and they were able to do so, and here they are, and like I said, they have an opportunity to be one of the few Panhandle teams to win a state title. But you flip on that, you have a Wimberley team who's also, they've also been knocking on the door too. Kind of like what Davenport's been knocking on the door. They've had, like I said, I think in the last couple years, we've had the same four teams and that from that district, be in the regional semifinals, and then we have the two of them play, actually in the regional quarterfinals, and then we have two of them end up playing in the regional finals. So now with the split, like I said, could we see two state champions from the same district? It's, we never know, but I think Wimberley's playing very well. They beat a really good El Campo team, and I think, like I said, they do have their hands full here at Randall, but it should be a fun one, and we'll see what the Lady Texans can do.
Yeah, should be. And if I'm not mistaken, this should be I think you referenced it right now if I heard you correctly. This should be I think our very first match of the state
Mm-hmm.
weekend. So
Yeah.
Thursday, April 10th, 11 a.m. There at Birkelbach Field in Georgetown. All right. We move on to 5A, our girls 5A Division 1 state final. Out of Region 1, Colleyville Heritage. Stop me if you've heard that one before. Right here they are once again. They're creeping on Kukui territory, I should say. But out of Region 1, Colleyville Heritage versus Region 3, a squad I know both you and I have been huge on all year. Just as consistent as can be this year. Out of Region 3, A&M Consolidated. This match slated for Friday, April 11th, 4 p.m. Again, Girls 5A D1 State Championship, Colleyville Heritage, and A&M Consolidated. Thoughts on this one, Coach?
Yeah, this is going to be a very high intense game. Like I said, Colleyville Heritage. I know Wakeland gets a lot of the, as far as kind of being those dynastic teams, but I think you're gonna lump into Colleyville Heritage. They're becoming one too, and you hear their names year in year out. They're in the state semifinals, state finals, even regional finals. So they've really established themselves an excellent program, and another opportunity here for them to lift some hardware. And then the A&M Consolidated team, we've been high on them this year. They've been in my RPIs, especially in the top five, and they beat a really good Smithson Valley team that we know, with Coach Atkins, and they also had a grind through that Region 3. They had to beat Georgetown, they had to beat Hendrickson. Those are some heavy hitters there in Region 3, and they're going to be prepared. They're not going to roll over against Heritage, and should be an interesting matchup. Um, like I said, Colleyville will probably be the favorite, but wouldn't count out against. Be surprised if NM Consolidated comes out with a win here as well.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a great. I'm excited to see this one. I'm very excited to see this one. So, what will it look like? We shall see. Very excited how this one will play out. Talk about styles. Styles call for matchups. Styles make fights, as they say, right? And I think this is high intensity in this one. I think is very spot on. Absolutely, couldn't agree more. All right, we move on. 5A D2 Girls State Championship. Out of Region 2, El Cucuy themselves, Frisco Wakeland, facing out of Region 4, Cedar Park. This one's slated for this will be our first match of the day on Friday, April 11th, 11 a.m. Again, out of Region 2, Frisco Wakeland, and Region 4, Cedar Park for the 5A D2 State Championship. Thoughts, Coach?
Another excellent. It's going to be another excellent game here. Um, Coach Cole mentioned about they did face Wakeland early in the year at the Governor's Cup. Just came a little short, but those type of games you learn from those, and uh, you know they won't be caught up as far as maybe because this is the first time they played them, back in, like I said, January. They were maybe used to maybe the speed of the game or what Wakeland's used to. Kind of they have that kind of aura with them. Now that they have this kind of the second time around, I think Cedar Park's going to be better prepared, and this I think this will be a little tighter game than the first one, and you still have to give the edge to Wakeland for what they've done. Like I said, the resume speaks for itself. But I think I said Cedar Park, if they can find, like I said, it's finding a way. if you remember last year for the boys, the Midlothian boys found a way to knock off the Wickland boys in the final. It's kind of like almost a little same scenario here. Can they do that? Grind it out, you
Right.
know, and not be intimidated, and show that that you belong there, and just finding that way to win and hope see if the ball bounces your way. And like I said, this will be a little tighter matchup from the first time around, but I'd still give the edge to Wakeland. But like I said, but Parkland's going to give them all they can handle.
Yeah, Cedar Park, I think if there's a team that matches up well at this
Mhm.
stage in the game that is capable of giving giving Wakeland a run for their money, it's them, right? Just from their depth to how they're coached to their style of play, what they want to do, and I think there's going to be so much of an added bonus and built-in, I guess, confidence for their preparedness because they've seen them once already this year, right? And it was there in Georgetown, so yeah, I think this one I feel is going to be. I don't think the second game of the day is going to start on time. I'll just leave it at that because I think this one I think just has the makings of high drama for sure. Should be a great one. But all right, we move on to all right, or 6A. All right, 6A girls D1 state championship slated for Saturday, April 12th, 4 p.m. And this should be the second to last match of the entire season. Out of Region 1, Coppell returning back to their form of old, right back where they belong here in a state final versus the Fighting Will Maloneys out of Region 4, Lake Travis squad that is just high confidence, high spirit, tons of talent, right? Always, every field they step on, they're going to have one of the most talented players on, if not the most talented player on the field. And that's saying something, not saying that that's necessarily the case versus Coppell because they bring tons of talent as well. This should be a dynamite state final. 6A D1 state championship, Coppell versus Lake Travis. Thoughts on this one, Coach?
This is gonna be another great game here. I was glad to see Capel come back into the state finals. Again, we're back to Georgetown. After a couple of years, kind of a little falling short, but like I said, they're in that very tough district with Louisville, Marcus, Flower Mound, Hebron. It's a dogfight for that district, and actually, Capel had to beat face Flower Mound for the third time just to win the regional final, and then last week they knocked off a really good the Woodlands team, and here they are. I think, like I said, I'm sure they're feeling pretty good. Going running through the teams that they ran to in that Region 1, because
Right.
Region 1 is like I said, it's just kind of murder's row there as far as you know quality teams, but you also can say that for the Lady Cavaliers from Lake Travis. They've had an excellent season, and like I said, their district's not a slouch either. They beat a really good, probably favored Round Rock team. And we were very high on Round Rock, but the Lady Cavs were able to get a win, and
Hmm.
they beat a really good Seven Lakes team as well, who's been to the dance. Went to the dance last year, um, and there's an opportunity here. Last year we saw, like I said, kind of the Westlake versus Dallas matchup. Last year is kind of the same thing this year. We have Capel. This time it's Capel versus Lake Travis.
Got some guy in here, never heard of this guy, Mr. Mike Youngblood, never heard of him, saying, Go Cavs. Mike, hey, great work in these state playoffs, calling matches on Texan Live. Really fun. Love watching you on the call. Great stuff. Thank you, Mike. Uh, yeah, I mean, so many different angles, the matchup on this one. I feel like this is one here. We start talking about Coppell and Lake Travis. I feel like this is one where I feel like I have the least grasp on what direction the matchup may go. For a number of reasons, right? Just in terms of the depth of both of these squads, the talent of both of these squads, how they're well coached. So I don't know. This one feels a little different in terms of trying to get your arms around as far as the matchup, right? And because I just feel like we could be in for a surprise in here somewhere. Thoughts on that?
Well, they did face each other already in the beginning of the
Right,
season.
right at the
So
start of the season. Yeah,
in the start of the season, Capel got like I said, a 4 nil win against them. But
correct.
That was January 2nd.
Right.
We're for April 6th. So the teams have evolved, and like I said, they've built chemistry. I know that week. I know there were some players missing from a lot of teams, especially that first week of the
Of
season.
course. Yeah, yeah.
So they may not have their full squads or injuries. And here, it's a different scenario. I think this is, like I said, it's going to be an evenly matched game. Like I said, they're familiar with each other. They're almost as similar in styles, especially the type of pairs that they have. Like I said, this can go either way, and like I said, I want to be surprised. Like I said, if Lake Travis wins this one, it's going to be a dogfight.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out. I know both squads will be ready, but again, this should be our second to last match of the 2024-2025 season. Again, that is your 6A D1 state championship between Coppell out of Region 1 and Lake Travis out of Region 4, slated for Saturday, April 12th at 4 p.m. And we move on to our final match that we're going to review. This will make 12 out of 12. Our girls 6A D2 state championship out of Region 1. Marcus, who's been here so many times, right, has reservations regularly as well. Here they are. They're back, putting another great run together versus Stratford out of Region 3. Stratford, who just maybe one of the teams who has been the least talked about, right, in these state playoffs. This one's slated for Saturday, April 12th, 11 a.m. This will be your first match of the day on the final day of the season on Saturday, April 12th. Thoughts on this one, Coach?
Uh, another great game, but like I said, actually this is a rematch from a game they played on January 4th, which Marcus did beat Stratford 3-1. But like I mentioned, things have changed. Marcus is, like I said, they could be a lot different team than they are. Maybe they're kind of even better. But look at the quality teams they play. Did knock off defending state champion Prosper. They beat a very good Forney team. Who Forney, like I said, they had an excellent season this year. In that state semifinal. Like I said, their battle. Like I said, Marcus is battle tested with that district they're in. But
Right.
Stratford, they've been, like I said, extra sneaky this year. Not very, not a lot of people. They've, like I said, they've always had a great program. But they've just kind of fallen short. Maybe like in the regional semifinals or finals. But this year they kind of pieced it all together. They beat a very good Katie Jordan team. They beat Kingwood, Tompkins, and then they had that big win versus Vandergrift. They're like I said, so they're ready to go. And like I said, this is a rematch. A lot different situation now. And like I said, because both teams do have to travel, it's going to be on a neutral site. And Stratford, at least they know they're familiar with them. Like I said, they probably know what to expect. And then that's sometimes when some things happens here on these state championship games. You're not really, last year you were able to scout your opponent, because you were right there watching their same sound. This year's a little bit different now.
Right.
You
Yeah,
maybe
it's a
didn't
great
have
point.
the luxury, maybe didn't
Yeah.
have the luxury to go see them, but for them, they've already like I said, have seen them get that familiar to playing early on, and maybe be able to kind of see what kind of changes they make and have a game plan ready to go into this final.
Yeah, the scouting piece is an interesting one, right? Because I mean, at this point, yeah, I mean, pretty much everybody will have film on everybody, but not the same as seeing them in person, as we know, right? So being able to see them there in the state semifinal, play out right before or after your match, and then preparing for them a day or whatever, 30 hours later, what have you. Very different, right? Very different. So the legs will be fresh, but in terms of will all this extra time, the preparation time, will that allow time for the nerves to maybe get the best out of some of these pro? I hope not. I hope not. I think we'll be in store for some tremendous finals because of this format, but we shall see. But that is going to do it for our. That is going to do it for our look at the state championship slated for this Thursday, April 10th through Saturday, April 12th. All 12 matches, all 12 finals. So again, doubling up on our state champions. So by Saturday, by Saturday night, we will have the season will be in the books. another great season, and we will have 12 new or or defending state champions, right? At least a few. But yeah, so any final thoughts on these, Coach? Before we got one more thing to look at here. So here's the final layout. Almost forgot about this guy. So here is our in case you're keeping tabs or in case you're kind of curious in terms of our state final regional representatives, what it looks like. This is what it kind of essentially breaks down to. You'll see both Region 2 and Region 4 leading the way with exactly 7 representatives in the state finals, and then Region 1 and Region 3 with 5 apiece. Thoughts on this, Coach?
I think you can see that, normally in the past you did see a higher number probably from out of Region One. Region One, Region Two, which this year, I think the big surprise is having on seven teams in the final from Region Four. That's
Yeah.
shown that
Region
Region
4
Four is
having a great year.
having a great year. Region Two, like I said, I think sometimes Region Two takes a back burner to Region One, and this year, like I said, they're overtaken by having a couple more representatives for the final. But you're starting to see everything starting to kind of even out, especially with this. I think this format is even things out for a lot of these teams to have an equal amount of representatives in the state finals. So I know, like you mentioned, a lot of people didn't like the way it is. It's not a perfect system, and maybe on the next realignment they do fix some things.
Hmm.
But you can see here it's becoming a little bit more balanced, and um, but it's great. Like I said, we're seeing some great matchups. That's a big thing. Uh, I think the big knock on where a lot of people are saying, well, this team's playing early on. You know, the best teams aren't going to be there at the very end. Well, that's not really the case here. You still got some quality teams, and
Right.
you got some quality
Right.
final matches. And like I mentioned before, if you want to be the best, you got to beat. To be the best, you got to beat the best. Whatever path you take, you have to beat some top ranked teams to get to it, and some have done that. Well, you look at Ailey Felsig, look at some of the teams they had to beat to get to this point. But it just shows that, hey, you got to be on your A game regardless who you're playing in the playoffs,
Yeah.
and then this is the proof right here.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you're just joining us and wondering what you're looking at, or if you're listening to us here, we're looking at the regional representatives in the state finals by region, with Region 1 having a total of 5 representatives, Region 2 with 7, Region 3 with 5, and Region 4 with 7, with both Region 2 and Region 4 leading the way with 7 apiece, and then Region 1 and Region 3 with 5 apiece. Now, the interesting piece will be, what does this look like? What does this look like after Saturday night, right? In terms of state champions, right? So we will track that as well. We will share that with you in our future episodes of Inside Texas High School Soccer. But yep, I mean, great stuff here. That is going to do it, Coach. We are officially in Joe Rogan territory. We're at over 2 hours now. A little different today. We knew today's show was definitely going to be longer, with three guests as well. So a big thank you to Coach Dave Simeone from United Soccer Coaches, their director of coaching education, as well as Coach Poole and Coach Carrasco of Cedar Park and Klein Kane, respectively, as they prepare for their state finals later this week. Coach, it is that time, stoppage time. It's time to share our thoughts, shout outs, thank yous, whatever's on our mind, whatever you may have. Take it away. The floor is yours, Coach.
So like I said, just looking forward to the finals here. It's finally arrived. Different format. Um, but exciting games coming up. Like I said, we're gonna have first time ever 12 state champions. I know some are not thrilled about that, but hey, unless the UIL wants to create a Super Copa the following week, I mean, hey, there's an idea that can float around. You never know.
We got
Um,
Matt in here, who has
yeah,
nothing to contribute other than to talk smack about Real Madrid. So
no, he's
that
what
guy,
happened to
he other
Man
than San
U.
Antonio FC, he cheers for nothing but losing teams. So I don't know what he's talking about, right? But yeah, no, thank you, Matt. Really appreciate you. Thank you for listening. Always appreciate you. Thank you, sir. Sorry, Coach. Go ahead, continue.
No worries, no worries. Like I said, but like I said, I'm looking forward to for this week's games. Should be great ones. We'll have some teams who are lifting the trophy for the first time ever. We may have one lifting for the fourth time in a row.
Yeah, yeah.
It's and it's an establishment of a dynasty. That what you can really say. And but if you have an opportunity to go
If
out there,
Savannah wins, if Coach Adams and the Lady Bobcats win their four, I think they're going to have to redesign their crest because they're running out of room with stars, right? So they're going to have to start putting them up top or something. I don't know what he's going to do, but
or
yeah,
he's got to do what LA Galaxy does. Instead of putting all of them, they put that big gold one with I guess with a number in it. They might
is
have
that
to
what
do
they,
that.
is that what they do?
I think that's something similar, or they put like one big gold one, or for like that means five
That
state
means five.
championship, no, five
Gotcha.
titles, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So, um, but it's not a nice problem to not to have to have all those
right.
stars
Yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
It's something that Matt seems not familiar with, especially when you win 15 Copas European Championships. But just going into the this week, it should be a fun one. If you have a chance, come check out, support your teams, because like I said, this is the final week. This is the last opportunity before the start of the next the 25-26 season, and that will be till the first week of, I believe, the first week of December. So and also there's some of these kids, this is their last ever, for some maybe their last ever game.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if you're a player out there for one of these teams, consider yourself very lucky. Not say very lucky, but to be able to experience this. Cherish it. Whether you win or lose, still cherish it, because it takes a lot to get here. And you can always, looking back, and say, "Hey, look, at least I got to this point. Whether you live the trophy or not, it's something that's always going to be part of your legacy." So, uh, just enjoy the moment, live it.
yeah. Couldn't agree more, man. I mean, to be one of the final to be one of the final 24 teams playing going into this weekend, right, is and playing on the last game of playing in the game of the last game of the season, right, in your classification, your division, what have you. Pretty special stuff, man. Pretty special stuff. So, regardless, to all the players, all the coaches, all the parents, right? Everybody, the administrators, the communities, the students, enjoy it, man. Enjoy it. It's what makes it special. It's what makes it different, and be respectful of one another, be kind to one another, but let our sport shine. Let our student athletes go out there and let's let them shine. We say in the military, we say let's put them on parade, right? Let's let them do the talking. Let's let them put our sport in the best light. And our job is to go on there and support them, cheer them on, and have fun watching them and covering them. So, yeah, excited on that front too. So, a couple of things I wanted to go over. My final thoughts. Excuse me. So couple of things. D1, so the D1 D2 split, right? I've been talking with a number of coaches, and one of the things that I kind of really wanted to highlight is, I know we've heard this at a certain point, but something to think about, something so for our coaches out there, talk to if you feel this way, because it seems like it's a lot of input that I'm getting from a lot of coaches, but talk to your athletic coordinators, talk to your assistant athletic coordinators, your athletic coordinators, talk to your ISD athletic directors, executive directors. Give that feedback. Talk to your board members, your regional board members at Tasco about your input, your thoughts on this Division One, Division Two split. Right? If you feel maybe if your input is, "Hey, I like it as is," then you give that input. But one of the things that many people that I've been getting regularly in terms of feedback is that this is clearly a split that should be done before the season, right? That's what many people feel. That's what many people think, and I think that from that perspective, I think it's very much in play, or can be easily in play at the 6A and 5A level. 4A, yeah, maybe you can make an argument a little bit as far as is it needed? Does it matter? I don't know. But I think obviously 7A isn't coming around anytime soon, at least not for, I don't know, another 2 cycles at least. So something to think about, but give that feedback, give that input and not just, I guess I'm not going to say complain or whine about it, but that is input that you can give to, even at coaching school. If you go to coaching school, a lot of people go to the TASCO convention, but you go to coaching school this summer and you're in some of those conversations with big picture people outside of just soccer. That's important feedback to give in conversations, right? So think about that. Something I wanted to mention, something that has come up that is a little bit of a kind of a travesty, I guess, if you will, is our now in our regional, with no regional true traditional regional tournament, right? There is really no hardware, right, being passed out. I think how it worked in the past was whoever that predetermined site host was, they would coordinate that in conjunction with the UIL, and there would be something there. Now there is no, now there is no true hardware being passed out there other than schools doing that for themselves. So kind of unfortunate. Again, some feedback to be considered for your leadership, your administration, beyond just your school, right? In terms of through TASCO, through the powers that be, the decision makers within district executive committees, and so on. And then the other one too is, our state semifinals got multiple input from different people. Just everybody's adjusting to this, right? Everybody's adjusting to this new format. And some people saying it's like, hey, they felt like they liked the new format, but they felt like the feel was taken away from the sport a little bit in terms of the state semifinal. A lot of these matches didn't have a quote unquote true state semifinal feel compared to what they've seen in the past in terms of Birkelbach, Georgetown, or just a state semifinal. So again, all key pieces of information to think about, process, have those conversations with other high school coaches in your district, in your region, and then across the state. But this is why we bring them up. Those conversations are being had. I'm having those conversations a lot right now. So, but the big thing is that is feedback and input that needs to be shared regularly, right? Not just one time, or no, I don't like it, I hate it, and that's it. And then we continue to complain about it. But it needs to be maybe, yeah. Is the structure good? Yeah. Is it good? Yes. Is the format perfect? No. But that's what we're kind of always tweaking, always adjusting to try to make it better. So, but the key is to always try to do better, right? So just something to think about. And then, excuse me. So, again, just all key pieces of information to think about and discuss. And then the last piece I did want to share, again, we started the show earlier with a tribute and moment of silence to one of our own, and coach out of Kingwood and Press Holcomb. And I did want to give a shout out to our friends out at Lethal who allowed us to use their in memoriam graphic to start off the show. Really appreciate you guys, and thank you for that as well. And yeah, I mean, this is our last show, before the state playoffs, or the state playoffs before the state finals begin. So really excited. Thank you. 10 episodes in, here we are. We're about 1,100, almost 1,150 strong listeners across the state of Texas and beyond. So it is 10:30. So first of all, my first question is, what is wrong with all of you? But second of all, I appreciate you guys. We love you guys. Thank you so much. You're the reason why we do it. And grateful for each and every one of you, each and every single day. And this continues to be about the people and for the people who are dedicated to our beautiful game. And yes, high school is an important part of this beautiful game of ours. And the last piece of information I have to share is just simply we will be, the 50/50 podcast will be going to Georgetown this year for in-depth live coverage of the state finals. So wanted to share that with everybody. What that will look like exactly, to what extent, we do not know yet. Still working on that. Still trying to iron out some things, but we will be there. Looking forward to it. Grateful for all of you. Grateful for the many people that are allowing that to happen and working with us as well. So thank you to each and every one of you. That is going to do it. Again, remember that you can please like, rate, subscribe, go on YouTube, trying to grow that YouTube channel, trying to get it over 500 subscribers. Go on there and subscribe. Hit that live bell notification so you'll get notified each and every time that we go live. You can find us on Twitter Twix as we call it, at 50_50pod. On Instagram at 50_50 podcast. Those of you listening to us live on IG Live right now, thank you so much. Really appreciate you guys. And then you can find us on YouTube. Just simply search the 50_50 podcast and we'll come right up there on YouTube. Go on there. Again, subscribe. And then you can also find us on whatever your preferred podcast platform of choice is, preference, whatever. Go on there. Give us a review. That keeps us in that algorithm. That allows us to get seen more. So go on there, give us a review. Again, if it's something good, send it my way. If it's bad, send it Rafa's way. He's in charge of our complaint department as always. So we joke around with that, but not really. So he didn't know he's in charge of our complaint department, but he is. So Rafa, that's going to do it. Hopefully our outro here works smoothly in our first go around in our new software system. So for those of you that might have heard some echoing there along the way, our apologies. A work in progress as we go through our new broadcast platform here in EBMux. Really grateful to them as well. So Rafa, any final thoughts? Anything else?
Like I said, just looking forward for this week, and good luck to everyone out there, and be safe on the road. And also good luck to all the students. I know it starts testing week this week for them, so good luck to them as well. And we look forward to have another end of a great 2024-2025 season.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Now that you've killed the vibe with star testing talk, I guess it's time to get out of here. So awesome. Thank you again to everybody, and really appreciate you guys. Safe travels to everybody going to Georgetown for state, teams, coaches, administrators, parents. Everybody be safe, and we will we'll try to please let us know when you're all going to Buc-ee's so we can try to avoid the mad dash at that time. Just kidding. But thank you again. Really appreciate all of you, and you know what to do. Until the next time, keep downloading and keep listening. You've been listening to the 50/50 Podcast, powered by the 50/50 Podcast Network. Help us continue to grow by liking, rating, and subscribing on all major podcast platforms. And don't forget to follow us on X at 50_50 pod, on Instagram at 50_50 podcast, as well as on YouTube at the 50_50 podcast. Until the next time, keep downloading and keep listening.